India will be hosting the mega G20 summit later this week. This summit will see world leaders converging in the Indian national capital. With me is Minister of State in the Ministry of External Affairs, V. Muraleedharan, to talk about this mega summit. Sir, welcome to Beyond. My first question to you is, how do you see this summit, the focus of the summit for the Indian government, if you can talk about how India will be providing direction to the global community?
India being the largest democracy and the mother of democracies, as our Prime Minister always mentions, for us, definitely for every citizen of the country, it's a great occasion to host the leaders of the most, I can say, economically prosperous, the most powerful 20 heads of states or heads of governments, and being the forum where 75% of the whole world's economy is transacted, such a forum to have its meeting in India, it's a great occasion. And at the same time, I would also say that this is an opportunity for India to put forward the issues that India has been taking up at various international fora, especially the developing countries, the issues that concerns the global south. India's achievements in various fields like the digital public infrastructure, the issues of climate change, all these issues, this is an opportunity. So both at the substantive level as well as at the as a host country, this gives a major opportunity for India to host the G20. So the whole country is looking forward to it, and being part of MEA personally also, and as MEA also is looking forward for the summit that is going to happen on 9th and 10th.
So how does India plans to put its imprints on the global governance post this G20 summit, because India is keen to shape the global order as well?
See, we have always held the view that the period when there was a bipolar world, that is over now. It's a multipolar world now. And in the multipolar world, the views that India has been putting forward, especially of inclusive growth, especially of sustainable development, issues where living in harmony with nature. So all these aspects are being recognized by the whole world more and more. So our solutions for many of the vexed problems of the world, we feel that this will be an opportunity when India can put forward, and there can be a consensus on those issues which will be accepted by the most powerful of the whole world, and then that will contribute for the future of the world. So we feel that during this G20, India will be able to put forward those and bring about a consensus on those issues.
So you have been involved deeply in the Gulf region. You have been visiting many of the Gulf countries. India has invited many Gulf countries, including UAE as well, to attend the G20 summit. So if you can talk about the rationale of India focusing on many of these Gulf countries, whether it's UAE or Oman, and of course Saudi Arabia is a permanent member.
Of course, this summit sees the participation of 3 participants from the Middle East, that is the Gulf region. Other than Saudi Arabia being a permanent member of the G20, the UAE and Oman are part of this as special invitees. See, for India, UAE has our relationship is of multiple dimensions. One is, it's the Indian diaspora, the largest number of Indian diaspora in a particular region. I would say that Middle East is that region. So having representation from that region, that goes a long way. Second is the energy security part is there. And the third is India and UAE have been friends since long, and we together we feel that can take forward the direction in which we would like to see that the world, how it shape in the coming days. So in that, we consider that the Middle East countries whom we have invited, they will be partners with India, and they will, as friends of India, we both can take forward this, the viewpoint, the direction in which we would like the world to go ahead.
And Oman as well, which is an
Oman
Indian
is
Ocean.
also, of course, I mentioned Oman also. Oman and UAE are invitees for this. Saudi Arabia is a permanent one, always.
Another focus has been Africa as well. We are keen to make sure that African Union becomes a permanent invitee during this year's G20 summit. How do you see this focus area by the government of India?
Second, another area which has seen the largest number of participants, perhaps in any G20. This G20 will have representatives from Africa in the largest number. Nigeria, Egypt, then Mauritius, and Comoros being the AU chair. See, India's view about Africa has been put forward by the Prime Minister in the speech that he made in the Ugandan Parliament in Kampala, where he said that India's engagement with Africa will be on the basis of the requirement and the needs of Africa. So, and Prime Minister has the other day very clearly mentioned in an interview that he gave that when we are planning to take forward the agenda for the whole world, where the developing countries matter much, Africa has a very prominent role. And in the new global scenario that is evolving, the days when UN were formed and the days when the impression about Africa was something different, now the situation has changed. So if the developing countries, developing nations, their concerns are to be taken into consideration, then the 54 countries of Africa, they matter much. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji had initiated this in 2015, when after he took over in 2014, we had a meeting of all the governments of Africa, all the countries of Africa, 54 countries, their heads of states or heads of governments had attended the African conference that we held. So, the issues of Africa, it is already being discussed in G20, but this is for the first time they are getting a participation in G20. And Prime Minister has written to all the heads of states who are participants of this G20 to make African Union, Chair of African Union, a permanent member of the G20. So, it again goes in sync with what India has been proposing, that there is this is a multipolar world, and the concerns of the global south, that has to get reflected in any international fora, any fora that discuss about economy, that discuss about climate change, that discuss about food security. These issues, wherever it is discussed, without Africa getting representation in due representation, that discussion cannot be complete.
How confident you are that African Union becoming a permanent invitee, because we have seen countries coming out in full support. US, I can remember, France, I can remember. So are you confident that this will be that pivotal moment that African Union will become a member?
See, I wouldn't like to give an answer to that, because I would leave it to the summit, because it's the decision of the heads of states who will be gathering. But as my foreign minister, Jaishankar ji, he says, optimism is the basis of any diplomatic activity. Anybody who is involved in diplomatic activity, he has to be optimist. So I am part of that diplomatic community now, being a member of the MEA team. So I am optimistic about that.
So you mentioned about Global South as well. We hosted the Voice of the Global South Summit. How do you see that summit feeding into this summit, the G20 summit, and how India can lead the Global South as well?
See, when Prime Minister India took over as the chair of G20, presidency of G20, The first thing that came to the in the action was that how the concerns of the global south can get reflected in the G20's activities. Because there are many of the issues that we discuss, whether it is food security, whether it is climate change, whether it is the financial aspects of climate change or any such things, debts, loans, various other things. All these have to are major issues that concerns the global south. But practically global south didn't have much voice in the within the G20 fora. So that's why under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, we had the voice of global south. Almost 125 countries participated where they expressed their concerns, the issues. So we feel that unless these issues are discussed, G20 cannot be a forum, cannot become a fora where it is discussing about the whole world, the issues of the whole world. So when you keep 2/3 of the global population out of the whole discussions, you cannot claim to discuss that we are discussing about the whole world. So that's why we have discussed the issues of the global south in the voice of global south, and then those issues will definitely get reflected in the deliberations that will happen, and it has already got reflected during the many events that has been held as part of the G20 presidency.
So my final question is on the logistics bit. You must be very busy. This is the G20 week. I mean, just 2 days left for the summit and leaders to arrive. If we can talk about the operations which are underway, the preparedness in terms of welcoming so many world leaders, it must be a difficult task.
See, any task is easy if there is a scientific planning and planning in advance. So the government and the ministry has been making these preparations quite in advance. So we have a full secretariat working in Sushma Swaraj Bhavan more than a year, and the entire planning has the stamp of the whole of government, because Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji believes in the whole of government approach. So the entire government is involved. It's not only entire government. This is the first time that G20 has become a people's G20. So that's why I would say that it's not only the government, it is the entire country that is involved. So I have the experience of attending 2 such events. One was the health working group meeting in Kovalam in Trivandrum, and the second was the Sherpa meeting in Kumarakam near Cochin. During the earlier presidencies, or even in India for any international events, Vigyan Bhavan was equated with India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji has given the message that Vigyan Bhavan is not India. India lives in its 28 states, union territories. So we will be holding, by the time we complete our G20 presidency, we will be holding meetings in every union territory, every state, starting from Arunachal Pradesh to Ladakh and up to Kanyakumari and Kutch. So all these preparations, it becomes easier when there is involvement of the people. So Prime Minister has been making an effort. His point has been that any activity to become fruitful has to become a people's movement. So we have been making it a people's movement. The logistic part also is being taken care of because people are already aware. It is not a sudden clampdown that no, nobody should travel to Delhi. Delhi is hosting such an event. People are attuned to the G20 presidency of India, and that the heads of states are coming in. So the logistics part, of course, the whole of Delhi is spruced up. There is going to be a warm welcome. There is going to be a luxurious welcome, and it will be in the spirit of the ethos of India. That is, we treat our guests as gods. Atithi Devo Bhava. So in that spirit of Atithi Devo Bhava, every delegate who is coming to India for this G20 summit, he will be accorded a warm, luxurious welcome.
Well, clearly it's a whole of government and whole of society approach. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to WION. It was pleasure speaking to you and get a view about the government, what it is thinking when it comes to hosting this mega summit. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.